Hello everyone. Today I will talk about an anonymous subscriber's comment. She wants me to talk about this topic. We'll talk about a subject that I've noticed happening quite frequently. I've seen men ignore women, and the women give them dirty looks and essentially think there's something wrong with the man or other males in general. I've also seen very good-looking guys ignore women, and the women get very upset that a good-looking male doesn't notice them. I find it rather ironic that you, a woman, are telling men to ignore other women. I don't mean to offend you, but what you just said actually sounds like you're trying to set yourself apart from all the other women out there who get upset when they're being ignored. Have you ever stopped to consider how you feel when a man ignores you? You're also telling us men to ignore women and then writing about it by simply making this video. I just find it ironic that you tell men to ignore women, but you, a woman, wants me, the man, to pay attention to you. I'll stop beating a dead horse and get to the point. I just want to know if you're aware of what you are actually asking for, either consciously or subconsciously, and I'd appreciate a little bit of honesty. Perhaps you're a woman who doesn't like being ignored, so you're convincing me to make a video about it. So, when you're ready, please respond in the comments section below. Anyways, I've talked about how when I ignored women in the past, they always had to come up with a reason why I wasn't interested in them. I even spoke about a woman who was so desperate to know that she brought a Playboy magazine to class and started to ask me if I thought the women in the magazine were attractive, to see if the reason I was rejecting her was either because I was interested in them. I believe that most women, to a certain extent, enjoy being ignored by men. While women frequently gripe that their boyfriends and potential partners don't call them on the phone or send them enough text messages, the truth is that when a man ignores a woman, she can't help but wonder, why isn't this guy that I like calling me back? Is there something wrong with me? I have bad body odor, or am I just ugly? Such is life when one's self-worth depends on the approval of others, which is pretty much true for every single woman, and that's one reason why men are fortunate, because if we do a good job at something, we don't need anyone else to tell us that the job is well done. Instead, we can recognize the results right away. But for a woman, she not only has to do a good job, she also has to receive a reward. Since most men don't care about trophies, it's usually women who put them on their desks and smile the most when they receive them. I didn't receive as many useless trophies while I was playing sports growing up. When I worked in finance, I would always win prizes like tickets to sporting events stuffed from my desk, as well as engraved glass plaques, and the older I got, the more of the stuff I would get. I've photographed award ceremonies where these plaques were basically given out, but they were difficult to photograph because they always reflected the light from my flash units. I had to ask people to tilt them down so my cameras could actually see what was written on the trophies like that, which show women that their employers are not undervaluing them, but rather honoring them. I also recently made a video where I advised guys to just ignore women, work on yourselves, and the women will just show up once you've done enough physical, emotional, and mental work on yourself. I think that such corny things are related to women entering the workforce and wanting to be valued and not ignored. But what you should be doing is urging specific kinds of men to ignore women instead. If a man ignores women generally, it won't make much of a difference. However, if a rich and attractive man avoids them, that will represent at least 5 to 10 common guys ignoring all women. Most guys who go their own way already ignore women, or at least don't pay attention to the ones who mistreat us. You're already preaching to the choir. We're already ignoring you. It's also amusing that you point out that when a woman notices that a highly attractive man ignores her, she often becomes enraged. This is yet another argument in favor of men working to become the ultimate catch before hanging out with and tormenting women by standing close to them. But ignoring them, I believe that one of the best ways to fight gynocentrism is to lower women's self-esteem, so that women become humble. Once again, I believe that most women these days are so full of themselves that they need to be ignored by wealthy, attractive, and successful guys, and that's probably the best lesson that they can learn on humility. I believe that if more women saw themselves as more than just sex objects for men, then they would actually try and cultivate it. It's not our fault that you can't maximize our utility because of your terrible attitude. And it's not our fault if we aren't interested in you either. So why are you getting upset? I know that you ladies out there want to get away with as much as you can and want to maximize the utility that you can get from us, man. But we, the utility objects, are leaving and going on strike, and it's not our fault that you can't maximize our utility because of your terrible attitude. How many women did I approach as a man only to be turned down repeatedly until I discovered that I am the prize and should just wait for women to approach me rather than improving myself? Ironically, I subconsciously realized this in high school when I began to feel more confident and attractive. I guess deep down, I was resentful of women wanting to be with me in my last 2 years of high school. While they didn't really give me the time of day in the first 2 years, it was like night and day. I was angry and upset about the fact that the only reason girls were now talking to me was because of how I looked because I spent time in the gym, and because I cared about what I was wearing. It was so petty. However, once they began dating me, they realized that I was socially awkward and stunted, and that appearances can be deceiving. I was trying to fake it until you make it, which will only get you so far in high school. What I also found interesting was that when I ignored the good-looking girls and instead chose to date the average-looking girls, people couldn't figure out why I was doing this and why I was essentially dating below my so-called standards. Instead, I simply paid attention to women. It was difficult for me to find a girl to date back then who didn't have those same types of qualities visible almost immediately as I got older. Though they got better at hiding their flaws from me, it was only after a year or two at that point that the true person would start shining through, and I was a fool in love. But looking back, even the women who were the nicest on the inside were still bad to me after a few months. They spent a year training me to a certain set of behaviors in the relationship, and then suddenly everything was no longer cool, and I had to do 180 and behave completely differently, reminding me of that scene in Cloud City where Vader keeps changing the deal with regards to Lando Calrissian over and over again. When I realized they were playing games, they had specific needs or desires in the relationship that they wanted addressed. Although you are aware that it will be awful, you hope it won't be too horrible. Women are okay with men ignoring their wants up until a certain point, and then suddenly it's like a gusher of never-ending demands, and usually that happens after the guy is totally emotionally enthralled by a woman, and only then does she actually reveal her true colors. As a man in a relationship, you may think that you're not ignoring her needs and you're giving her what she needs and wants. But then, like Lando Calrissian, and back then, if I had been smart, I would have disregarded their requests and said, well, if you didn't like me the way that I was, then why lure me in with love only to change the terms of our relationship conditions down the road? I should have also cut off all contact with them and ignored them, and they probably would have begged me not to leave. I paid the price for not ignoring women's demands more than if I had just ignored them in the first place, because I didn't put my foot down quickly enough and teach them who's boss by ignoring their demands. Instead, I became a yes dear mangana trained like a dancing monkey to serve drinks at a cocktail party, wearing one of those silly red Shriners hats while they kept shouting Vance Monkey Dance. Instead of just playing video games, painting miniatures, or participating in sports, I want to discuss productive hobbies. There are many pastimes that are worthwhile even if you don't earn any money from them. You still need to learn something new or develop personally while engaging in your hobby. Consider all the men who began developing computers in their garages in the 1970s and who freely shared their technologies and ideas, revolutionizing how we interact today. And I want to start exploring the world of electronics, more specifically robotics. One of my new dreams is to open a restaurant with robot chefs and automated food carts to serve people their lunch, essentially revolutionizing the food industry. But first, I want to get my own robot chef and actually start playing with it within the next couple of years. What do you think about me getting into robotics as a hobby, and more importantly, what hobbies do you guys have out there that are productive and enriching? I want to hear back before I put together my video on male hobbies, so please share your comments down below. The last thing I want to say about ignoring women is that the more I ignore them, the more they will ignore me. The more women seek out other forms of attention, whether it be through shopping, spa visits, or socializing with friends, the more they'll spend money to avoid feeling alone, which will boost the economy in any case.